Welcome to Mango's Compliance Conversations, and in this series we're going to bring some expert guests in, and we're going to talk about certain parts of compliance. And today I've got Michael from Momentum Safety, Craig from Mango. Michael implements and helps companies through the certification process, and Craig was an auditor in his previous life, so he will give his opinions on what he sees wrong. Today what we're going to talk about is policies. Guys, welcome. I suppose the first question is, what is a policy? Craig, you audited hundreds and hundreds of these things. What is a policy? What's the point of a policy?
The point of a policy is that it sets the scene for the whole management system. It's the peak of the system. It sort of drives the management commitment. It's their documented commitment to say that the policy, or to say that the management system is important, that it's going to help the company maybe improve its quality, or reduce incidents and injuries, or protect the environment, or protect its data security. So it's basically management's commitment to achieving great quality, great service through a policy.
And Michael, you've probably written hundreds, you would have had clients who would have written these policies and obviously asked for your input, or have you actually found out that you have written the policy and they're going, that's wonderful, but they don't actually know what even is in the policy?
Sound a bit sceptical there, Peter, but you're actually right. Oftentimes it is not the manager who is writing the policy, the director. I feel like it should be. I feel like it's a missed opportunity if they don't. It's their chance to put their stamp on, this is where we want to go for the company. But you're right, more often it's either written by the consultant or it's pulled off the internet. Look, I think a lot of times they will check it to see whether it aligns with the visions and what have you, but there's a real opportunity missed there if the director is not involved in the writing of the policy.
Okay, so The policy's been created, and so someone has to take ownership, and normally that's by someone signing the document. So, who normally signs these things in an organisation, Craig? Is it normally senior manager, or is it the compliance manager who signs it on behalf, or who does that?
Well, it's a range. It's normally the CEO or the general manager of the site or the organisation, but I've seen whole management teams signing the documents. But it's always great to see a signed policy sitting up in the reception area, so showing customers and contractors and their employees their commitment. So it's a great idea to have it physically signed and displayed in reception.
Yeah, because quite often organisations will put it in as an attribute or in their tender documents, and I've seen ones where it's gone in there and the policy's out of date. So it is really important that they do, which is my next point, is like, how often should you review the policy? Quite often you go into places and you can tell it's never been done because you just move the policy on the wall and you can see that the wall's faded and it's been up there for a long period of time. I think, Craig, when you audit it, the first thing you do when you're in reception waiting to start the audit is to look up and look at the policy and go, it's out of date. It doesn't really set it. So how often, what is a good practice for the review of the policy?
Okay, I think it should be reviewed at least annually. I don't think it's compulsory, but it feels to me like it's a chance to say, okay, I often recommend people do it at the start of the year. So if everything's gone by, if Christmas has gone by, let's go back, look at what we're doing, have a little bit of a sort of set some objectives and those sorts of things, and let's make sure our policy still aligns with what we want to see happening with this company this year. So I think annually is a good number, but at least every 2 or 3 years.
Right, okay. I totally disagree with that period, but definitely annually.
Yeah.
Part of that should be part of your annual review of your system, you're reviewing the system.
Yeah.
What's at the top of the system is the policy. Why not review it? Why not redate it, reconfirm it, get more people in there? How many times, Craig, you've been to a company and what do you see? You see the policy signed, up to date, but the CEO who signed it left. So it's now been signed and approved by someone who doesn't even work with the company. So these are little trigger points where something should be reviewed. So what other ways can you remember to do that review that you think is quite effective, Craig?
Well, of course, you could use a product like Mango maybe to remind you to review the policy every year. Or some organisations I've seen in their management review meetings, they could be monthly or bi-monthly or every 3 months. There's a section in there that you look at the policy.
Yeah.
And it's certainly something I do. I'm still a consultant for an organisation here in New Zealand, and we look at the policy every 3 months and look to see is it still working for the organisation? Is it still does it need updating? What new legislation? It's a very compliance-heavy organisation, so they're always looking at new legislation. So do we need to change the policy and update the policy? Because some of the legislation changes as well. So
For you guys, it has, yeah.
yeah. So every 3 months, I think. Is
Okay, it's
my
more often than what I
recommendation.
would have usually done, but I just like to have a set of management review meetings, a good place to do it. And at the start of the year, that's when I like to say we're going to have our review meeting, but this time we're going to just look at objectives and what do we want to achieve this year, and that's a perfect chance to review the policy, I reckon.
Yeah. Another one might be is like we audit the whole system normally. You know, it gets touched sort of some parts maybe more than once a year.
Yeah.
Why are we not auditing the policy?
Yeah, it should be on your
And that
plan.
should be part of it, and that way
Yeah, that's a
you'll
good
pick up any changes, anything that's you know, references to legislation have changed in the policy or something like that. So I think it's a mixture of like management review, setting a formal review where you, if nothing has changed, you actually do it on an anniversary, but also the internal audit process. Non-conformances, when you have it, it's like, wait a minute, we've had a whole string of the same type of thing. Are these non-conformances in conflict with what the policy says? If we say to deliver it on time, and then we're getting a whole pile of non-conformances for late delivery, then our policy's not correct. So we should go back and look at it. Is the policy too hard? So let's look at, say, the quality policy, for example. So what would be the tips to the viewers that you should have inside your policy? We know that the standard says that you must have a commitment to quality, although the first thing they do is not commit to quality, they don't review the policy. But the standard tells you have to have that part in there. What other things would you say should be in a policy, which are really good things?
Yeah, so I think a policy needs to, well, firstly, obviously have that commitment, but then on it needs to give us a bit more detail about what you're actually committing to. So something that you can say, look at the policy and then say, from there, we want to, this is going to start our key objectives. So I would like to see some dot points in there, the policy that says these are the things that we're going to commit to with regards to our product, with regards to our customer service, with regards to how we investigate non-conformances, accidents, incidents, those sorts of things. Nice and clear. You can even, if you want to, put some specific targets in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a quality manager, maybe I was just a little bit lazy, but I couldn't see the point of having objectives that sat in a procedure, that sat in a folder, and then had a policy that was, client-facing, employee-facing. So I think, well, I'll just join the two together. A, it gets rid of a piece of paper, makes my system smaller, but it meant that when I had an objective or a statement in my policy, I had the objective and the KPI that sat with it displayed to everyone.
I would use the policy more to give broad objectives and then another document that sits beside that gives the detail, fleshing out those objectives, but the objectives in the policy are the ones that form the rest of my planning for the year.
I think a lot of owners don't like seeing their objectives that sort of publicly. Craig, from your point of view, any good statements inside policies that you think are really worth having in there? Yeah,
I've always gone with the sort of three legs of the stool, which is quality, cost and delivery. So, a measure, some sort of measure around quality of the product or the service, some sort of a measure around the cost, so that you're going to maybe reduce cost over time, and then delivery, you're going to deliver things on time. So I like to sort of make it nice and simple, maybe 3 bullets around those 3 areas.
Yeah, I suppose on the flip side is what things shouldn't be in a policy?
Lots of waffle, wordiness. Nice, clear, concise, direct, easy to read. You don't want the marketing people getting in and telling you about how great the company is or anything like that in your policy. They can do that elsewhere. It's clearly saying what we want to achieve, what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
But other policies I really personally hate is when you have a law of the land that says you're not allowed to smoke on your premises. So I don't know whether it's the compliance manager's got nothing to do that day, so he writes a no smoking policy. Why do people create policies when it's the law. You know, you don't write a policy saying you will drive at the speed limit. You get a license, you do that. So, but people seem to like to fill out their system with policies. And the other thing is that I think compliance people think that if they make something a policy, it will be done. Where it should be just a procedure.
Yeah.
Because making it the word policy does not actually make anyone do anything anymore, you know, rigorously or better.
Yep.
So we create these policies. So what is the best way to determine whether they're effective? Are they working? Because I think people think it's just a piece of wallware. It just sits up on the wall, looks really good, but there is a purpose to have a policy, but you want to make sure it is actually working. So what are good ways of determining whether it's effective?
You need to make sure that your policy is written in a way that it does have clear objectives. And if it's not directly in the policy, it can be in an accompanying document that says this is how we will know whether we're going to achieve the objectives of the policy. And then you go ahead and measure and report back via your auditing, measurement, management meeting type process.
Internal auditing will tell you whether your policy is being effective, because you'll ask questions of people at various levels in the organisation to see whether they understand is the policy working. And a good way, of course, is from the certification body or from the third-party auditor coming in and saying, hey, look, your system is effective, or it's not effective, or your policy is effective, or it's not effective, from their interview techniques as well. So internal audit and external audit is a great way to measure your effectiveness of your policies.
But I still think you've got to say what will mean this is effective. So you've actually got to have a standard to set.
We've put our lovely policy on the wall in the foyer, and it's the only place that's visible. But unfortunately, my employees all come through the employee entrance in the building every day, and they don't even see it. So how am I to communicate what's in that policy to my staff? What's, any tips there, guys?
Induction's an obvious choice there, so you can make sure that it's clearly stated at induction. I've seen a few companies do it really nicely where they actually have the MD up doing a video presentation to staff as they walk through the door for the first time, if he doesn't get to talk to them directly, and he is saying, this is our policy for these, he's not reading it word for word, but he's just outlining the key objectives that they're trying to achieve. So some way of communicating it to staff that way.
I think that's a brilliant idea, but unfortunately I think unfortunately it's compliance, and CEOs are far too busy to do other things like compliance. They think it's just an overhead, we've got to have it for the clients, but they don't actually use it as a forum to change habits. And I find it's a lost opportunity.
Yeah, it's the same as what we talked about at the start. If they're not reading it and taking it seriously and signing it, then they're probably not going to be the ones who actually get up there and tell staff what it's all about either.
Greg, you audited a few companies. Have you seen other sort of ways of promoting the policy to the employees?
Yes, so sometimes companies have all company meetings. I know one organisation here that I look at frequently, they have an all company 3 monthly meeting, and one of the agenda items is to run through the policies. And yes, it is a repetition thing, but the policy is talked about and there's a conversation with the staff, so it's not a one-way, the general manager pushing the policy down to staff.
Right, so we're coming to the end of this video. So around policies, is there any last minute sort of piece of advice that the viewer should take away?
My piece of advice was right at the start around the policy. When I was a consultant and when I was auditing, it's really got to be written by the consultant can help write it, but it's really got to come from the organisation itself and from the general manager or managing director. It's got to come from their thinking, their insights to the organisation. It's easy to copy and paste from the website. It's easy to get a consultant to do it. It's got to be hard. You've got to get people to go in and actually write it for their organisation. So that's my one piece of advice.
Yeah, so my piece of advice would be that exactly the same. If you're the head of a company, that's your best chance to sort of lay it out right then and there. If you're a consultant, I think your best chance is to try and make your people that you're talking to realise the importance of a policy and promote it really well. Don't just go and write it for them and give them a piece of paper to sign at the end of the day. It's your chance to capture them, and it might drive the system much better from there on in.
Good. And my piece of advice is read the standard. In the definitions, it says what a policy is. So before you start writing a piece of paper and you go, I'm going to make this a policy, read the definition. It's very clear. It's all about intent, and that's what you should make a policy. Cool. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you found this video of interest. Go to our website. You'll find there's a whole pile more videos. Our partners also do videos.